Most people believe the loudest person in the room holds the power. They think that by filling the air with words, they are asserting dominance, projecting confidence, and controlling the narrative. They couldn't be more wrong. In reality, the person who can't stop talking is usually the one most desperate to be understood, most afraid of being ignored, and most vulnerable to being read. In a modern world that suffers from verbal diarrhea, where every thought is tweeted, every grievance is aired, and every goal is announced before it's even begun, silence is no longer just a lack of noise. It has become a calculated strike. It is a weapon of the wise and a shield for the disciplined. The ancient Stoics understood a fundamental truth. Your words are a form of currency. When you spend them freely on every passing impulse, you bankrupt your authority. But when you hold them back, you build a reservoir of internal strength. Silence allows you to observe while others expose their hand. It allows you to remain a fortress of the mind while others are swept away by the winds of their own emotions. Today, we are diving into 5 Stoic lessons that will transform how you view the unspoken. We'll explore why a closed mouth was considered the ultimate weapon by masters like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, and more importantly, how you can use that silence today to reclaim your focus, your dignity, and your absolute authority. The noise trap. The era of instant reaction. We live in an age of pathological transparency. We are conditioned by our environment to believe that if a thought exists, it must be voiced. If an event occurs, it must be commented upon. And if we are challenged, we must respond with immediate crushing force. This is the noise trap. It is the cultural pressure to be a transmitter, rather than a processor. In the modern landscape, silence is often misinterpreted as weakness, ignorance, or, most dangerously, agreement. Social media platforms are engineered to exploit this. They are built on the refresh cycle, demanding that you have an opinion on a geopolitical crisis in the morning, a celebrity scandal by noon, and a personal grievance by dinner. We have become a society of first responders to things that don't actually matter. The Stoics, however, would look at this frantic need to speak and see a soul in chaos. To the Stoic, the mind should be a filter, not a funnel. When you fall into the noise trap, you lose your ability to distinguish between what is within your control and what is merely a distraction. You become a leaf in a hurricane, blown about by the opinions of people you don't even respect. We have traded the inner citadel, that quiet place of objective judgment, for a megaphone. The cost: leaking energy and killing the drive. Every word you speak has a cost. It is an expenditure of life force. When you react instantly to every stimulus, you are experiencing what the Stoics would call a leakage of the soul. You are pouring your internal energy into an external world that gives nothing back. Consider the cost in 2 specific domains. 1. The energy of reaction. When someone insults you or challenges your ego, your biology prepares you for a fight. Your heart rate rises, your breath becomes shallow, and your mind begins to race for a comeback. If you speak immediately, you vent that pressure, but you do so at the expense of your composure. You have allowed an external actor to dictate your internal state. You are no longer the master of your ship. The person who annoyed you is now the captain. 2. The dopamine deception. There is a profound danger in announcing your goals too early, a phenomenon modern psychology calls social reality. When you tell the world about the book you're going to write, the business you're going to start, or the gym routine you're beginning, you receive a fake hit of dopamine. The people around you offer premature praise. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Your brain, in its primitive state, cannot distinguish between the praise for the intent and the satisfaction of the achievement. You feel as though you've already won, and as a result, the hunger required to actually do the hard work dissipates. You have talked away your drive. The Stoics knew this intuitively. They didn't talk about virtue, they practiced it. They knew that the more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to actually do it. Silence preserves the pressure required for action. The reality. Over-explaining as a badge of insecurity. We often think that by over-explaining our actions, we are being clear or honest. In reality, over-explaining is a desperate attempt to manage how others perceive us. It is an act of submission. When you feel the need to explain your life choices, your career path, or your personal boundaries to someone who hasn't earned that information, you're essentially saying, "Your opinion of me is more important than my opinion of myself." This is the ultimate sign of insecurity. A person who is truly confident in their path feels no urge to justify it. They understand that their results will eventually speak for them, and until then, no amount of talking will convince a skeptic anyway. Every time you rush to defend yourself against a petty critic, you hand them the keys to your emotional state. You're telling them exactly where your buttons are located. You're showing them that they have the power to move you. In the Stoic view, this is a form of self-imposed slavery. If someone can make you angry with a few words, they are your master. The challenge: the void of silence. The real challenge is that silence is uncomfortable. In the absence of noise, we are forced to confront ourselves. When we stop talking, we stop being able to distract ourselves from our own inadequacies, our fears, and our lack of purpose. This is why people chatter, to fill the void. To be silent is to sit with the self. It is to audit your own thoughts without the buffer of external validation. The challenge we face today isn't just about closing our mouths. It's about developing the internal strength to exist in a world of noise without becoming part of it. It's about realizing that you don't owe the world your thoughts, your plans, or your reactions. The problem is that we have forgotten how to be the observer. We have become the participant in every trivial drama. This section of our journey is about identifying where you are leaking power and recognizing that your greatest vulnerability isn't what you don't say. It's the words you say too quickly, too loudly, and to the wrong people. By the end of this exploration, you will see that the noise of the world is a test. Every time you choose silence over a quick retort, you are passing that test. You are building a wall around your peace of mind that no critic, no social media trend, and no internal impulse can break through. 1. Listen twice, speak once. The intelligence of observation. Epictetus, born a slave and rising to become one of the most influential teachers in Rome, observed a simple biological reality. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. This wasn't just a clever quip, it was a tactical instruction. When you are the one speaking, you are only repeating what you already know. You are exporting data. When you are listening, however, you are importing intelligence. In any negotiation, conflict, or social setting, the person who speaks the most is the one who reveals the most. By remaining silent, you create a vacuum that others feel a desperate need to fill. As they scramble to fill the silence, they expose their insecurities, their hidden motives, and their biases. The Stoic knows that information is the currency of power. By listening twice as much as you speak, you become a master of your environment. You see the board clearly while others are blinded by their own voices. 2. The power of the pause, ratio over passion. In the heat of a confrontation, the human brain is wired for reciprocal escalation. If someone raises their voice, your instinct is to raise yours. This is the realm of passion, the raw, unthinking impulse that drives us to bark back. But the Stoic introduces a wedge between the stimulus and the response, the pause. When you're insulted, or when an argument reaches its boiling point, wait 5 seconds before responding. This silence is often more terrifying to an opponent than a shout. Why? Because a shout is predictable. It's a sign that you have been successfully hooked. But a calm, steady pause signals that you're operating from ratio dalla, pure, cold reason. It shows that you're weighing their words and finding them lacking. It signals that you are the one in control of the emotional climate of the room. You aren't just reacting, you are deciding if they are even worth a response. 3. Don't boast of your progress, the underground forge. One of the greatest modern traps is performative growth. We want to be seen as people who are disciplined, so we post photos of our early morning workouts or talk about the books we're reading. The Stoics warned against this ego leaking. When you boast about your progress, you are seeking external validation for an internal journey. Your ego feasts on the praise you receive today, which creates a false sense of completion. You feel like you've already arrived, so your discipline begins to slacken. Real growth is underground. It happens in the dark, in the silence, where no one is watching. By keeping your goals and your progress to yourself, you build a massive internal pressure, a steam engine of intent. Let the world be confused by your sudden transformation. Don't tell them you're changing. Show them the finished product. Let your results be so loud that your words become unnecessary. 4. Silence as a filter. The 3 gates. Marcus Aurelius often spoke about the economy of thought. He believed that most of what we say and do is unnecessary. If you eliminate the unnecessary, you get the double benefit of doing the essential things better. To implement this, the Stoic uses silence as a filter, often referred to in various traditions as the 3 gates. Before you speak, your thoughts must pass through 3 questions. 1. Is it true? Is this based on fact or just my ego's interpretation? 2. Is it kind? Am I speaking to help or am I speaking to hurt? 3. Is it necessary? Will these words improve upon the silence? If the thought fails even one of these tests, it is discarded. By practicing this, you stop being a source of noise in the world. You become someone whose words carry weight because people know that when you finally do open your mouth, what comes out is refined, deliberate, and truthful. 5. Mastery of emotion. The arrow without a target. Seneca once wrote that to be provoked is to admit that your opponent has found a weakness. Every insult is like an arrow shot at you. If you react, if you get angry, if you defend yourself, if you cry out, you are providing a target for that arrow to hit. Silence is the act of removing the target. When someone attempts to manipulate your peace through an insult or a slight, and you meet them with a calm, unblinking silence, their arrow flies past you and hits the wall. It loses its power. In fact, the energy of the insult often rebounds back onto the sender. They become frustrated, confused, and eventually they lose their own composure because they couldn't get a rise out of you. This is the ultimate no. It is a refusal to participate in someone else's dysfunction. By remaining silent, you are declaring that your internal peace is a sovereign territory, that no one has the right to enter without your permission. You're not a victim of their words, you're a witness to their lack of self-control. The development of the silent fortress. These 5 lessons work together to build what the Stoics called the inner citadel. You observe with your ears, you stabilize with the pause, you build in the dark, you purify with your filter, and you defend with your lack of reaction. When you master these, you realize that silence isn't a lack of communication, it is a higher form of it. It is the language of the person who knows exactly who they are and requires nothing from the world to prove it. The turning point. The baited hook. Imagine the scene. You're in a boardroom, a heated family dinner, or a digital confrontation. Someone, a rival, a toxic relative, or a petty critic, decides to take a shot at you. They've studied you. They know your insecurities, they know your history, and they've crafted the perfect insult. It's a baited hook designed specifically to trigger your ego. They throw the line. The room goes quiet. Everyone is looking at you, waiting for the explosion. They expect the classic script. You get defensive, your face turns red, your voice cracks as you try to justify yourself, and you descend into the mud to wrestle with them. Inside your body, the old man is screaming. You feel that familiar heat rising in your chest, the surge of adrenaline, the primal urge to strike back, to protect your honor, to win the point. This is the moment of maximum danger. In this split second, you're standing on the edge of a precipice. If you speak now, you lose. Even if you win the argument with a clever retort, you have lost the war because you have allowed an external force to dictate your internal state. You have let them pull your strings. The strike, the void of silence. Now, imagine a different path. You feel the heat, but instead of letting it reach your throat, you breathe into it. You observe the sensation as if it were a passing storm, something happening to you, but not of you. Instead of biting the hook, you do something revolutionary. You do absolutely nothing. You look them directly in the eye. You don't glare with anger because anger is just another form of being controlled. You look at them with a calm, steady, and objective gaze, the gaze of a scientist observing a specimen. You let the silence stretch. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10. In this silence, a profound chemical reaction takes place in the room. The person who insulted you was prepared for a fight. They were not prepared for a vacuum. When you don't respond, their insult is left hanging in the air, knacked and awkward. Without your reaction to give it life, the insult begins to reflect back on the person who said it. They start to look small. They start to look desperate. They realize that they have fired their best shot and it didn't even leave a scratch. The shift, ending the game. In that second, the power dynamic doesn't just tip, it flips entirely. By saying nothing, you have communicated the most devastating message possible. You are not important enough to move me. This is the strike. It is a strike of omission. You haven't lost the argument, you have transcended it. You have effectively ended the game because you've shown that you are playing by a completely different set of rules. While they're playing who can shout the loudest, you are playing who can remain the most centered. The person who baited you wanted a reaction, because a reaction is a form of validation. By reacting, you would have signaled that their opinion matters. By remaining silent, you have denied them that validation. You have treated their provocation as if it were nothing more than a barking dog or a gust of wind, something to be noted, but not something to be negotiated with. The revelation, the only free person in the room. This is the key moment of Stoic realization. True freedom, eleutheria, is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the state of being impossible to coerce. As you turn and move on, whether that means physically walking away or simply moving the conversation to a productive topic, you realize that you are the only person in the room who is truly free. Everyone else is a puppet of their environment. They react to the news, they react to the weather, they react to the moods of their bosses. They are pushed and pulled by the strings of desire and aversion, as Marcus Aurelius described it. But you have proven that you cannot be bought, sold, or provoked. You have reclaimed your authority not by taking control of them, but by taking absolute, unshakable control of yourself. This moment of silence is your inner citadel in action. It is the proof that your philosophy isn't just a collection of quotes on a page, but a living, breathing armour. The climax isn't a loud explosion of victory. It is the quiet, heavy click of a lock falling into place. You have secured your peace. You have won by refusing to fight. The aftermath of the strike. When you walk away from that encounter, you will feel a different kind of heat. Not the burning heat of anger, but the glowing warmth of self-respect. You will realize that every time you choose silence over reaction, you are training your character muscle. You are becoming more resilient, more formidable, and more mysterious. People will begin to treat you differently. They will realize that you cannot be played. They will realize that your silence is a fortress, and your words, when you choose to use them, are like heavy artillery, rare but devastatingly effective. You have moved from the chaos of the crowd into the stillness of the master. We must finally discard the myth that silence is a sign of shyness, passivity, or a lack of conviction. In the Stoic tradition, silence is the ultimate expression of economy of soul. It is the realization that your internal resources, your attention, your peace, and your energy are finite and precious. To give them away to every passing provocation, or to waste them on empty boasting is a form of spiritual bankruptcy. By practicing these 5 lessons, listening more than you speak, utilizing the power of the pause, keeping your progress underground, filtering your thoughts, and refusing to provide a target for insults, you undergo a fundamental transformation. You cease to be a reactor, a person who is merely a mirror of their environment, and you become a leader. A leader is someone who acts from a place of centered intent, unswayed by the noise of the crowd or the heat of the moment. You become a fortress. A fortress does not need to shout to be noticed. Its strength is evident in its stillness and its permanence. You begin to navigate the world with a quiet confidence, knowing that your authority doesn't come from your ability to dominate a conversation, but from your ability to dominate yourself. As Marcus Aurelius suggested, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. True happiness and true power are found in that quiet space between stimulus and response. Master that space, and you master your life. If you're ready to stop reacting like a puppet and start leading like a sovereign, now is the time to draw your line in the sand. This path isn't easy. It requires the discipline to hold your tongue when your ego screams to be heard. Prove your commitment right now. Comment the word stillness below to signal that you are taking control of your inner fortress. Subscribe to join our growing community of modern Stoics dedicated to mastery. The world is loud enough. Don't add to the noise. Go out there and let your silence speak volumes.